We're going to take an opposite stance now. We're going to talk about players who would normally think to be among the elite players in the league who are having pretty bad starts. Mm-hmm. None other than Austin Matthews, who I think will figure it out. He's looked okay in spurts. Sometimes he just looks like he's uninterested sometimes. I think that's been a long-standing criticism of the Leafs team in general. So I think it's just a symptom of a team environment that he's in. But he does drive the boat for the Leafs. I think eventually he's going to figure it out. The sad thing is that I think he's already kind of pissed the Rocket away. I know he had a really rough start last season, but the gap that exists between him and Pasternak and McDavid didn't exist last season. So I think the Rocket and the Hart as well is out of contention on an individual basis, but I have faith in him of all the players on the list to kind of figure it out.
So is that you saying you don't think, considering the start Matthews had, he can score 60 again, or you think McDavid or Pasternak is going to score over 60 this year?
Oh, I don't think he's going to 60.
Because he was on this pace last year.
He was. I don't know. I guess he never fail to surprise us, kind of thing. Like, nothing is shocking with him because we know he can do it. Mm-hmm. But like I said, the guys who are ahead of him weren't this far ahead of him. I think it's just going to be tough to catch up. I think McDavid's also going to make a case for the Rocket this year. He might just be upset that it's the one trophy he hasn't won yet. So
he hasn't won another pretty big trophy.
Yeah, of course, but I think I don't know. I don't think he's gonna win the Rocket. If he does, it would be incredibly impressive again. But I think he's gonna figure it out. Do you think he'll figure it out?
Yes. Like last year, Austin Matthews was on the same trajectory. I think he had 1 goal in his first 7 games. It was roughly the same. Yeah. The only difference was last year he was nursing a wrist injury that he had just gone surgery for.
That's right.
This year he's completely healthy, so there is that difference. I think if he knows. If he has the confidence that he can come back from a poor start because of last year, I don't think that there's anything that is stopping that confidence this year. I think he'll definitely come back. Expect 52 goals from him. I agree. 60 is probably not going to happen, but I do think over 50 is going to happen.
Still possible.
I believe I saw a stat line in Hockey Night in Canada that him and Timo Meier are 1 and 2 in the league in like the highest discrepancy between expected goals and goals scored.
So he should be scoring more.
Exactly. Like it's the things that you look for here that are ominous signs are when a player's expected goals are really low and he's not scoring, because that means he's just not getting and putting himself in positions and he's not finishing. An even worse sign is when a player is scoring at a high rate but his expected goals contribution is really low. That means that he's either playing beside Connor McDavid and is having tap-ins, or he's just, he's getting very lucky. Mm-hmm. If there's one spot you want your goal scorer to be in that isn't scoring, it's this one. So I think all signs point to him coming back. He even said it too. I think the game before he scored that very nice goal against San Jose, he said, I just need one to go in, and I feel like they'll all start going in. It was a beautiful slap shot that he scored against San Jose. Maybe, that's the impetus to start the goal scoring spurt.
I hope so, for the Leafs' sake. Next up is somebody that I have nightmares about daily. Because he's in my fantasy team and he sucks right now. Jordan Kyrou. I don't even know what to say about him. He really angers me. He really upsetting me. Because I said that was me who sort of on our show a few weeks ago said I would rather have him over Huberdeau over 8 years. Which, I mean, may still stand because Huberdeau's been kind of crappy too. But kind of proving me wrong here, unfortunately. I don't even know. Before I go on like a little rant, what do you have to say about him?
I just think the St. Louis Blues are bad right now. Like, he is way too good not to be good. He's way too good not to be good. What I mean by that is, Kyrou, we talked about last episode, has taken a different trajectory than other players like Matt Barzal, who are in those similar point ranges where he's getting better every year. So I think, there is a solid enough history here to say that, he will continue developing as a player. And I think the money that he was given reflects that. I think, on the opposite stance of Rasmus Dahlin, who is playing very well because his team's playing very well. Like I mentioned, when your team isn't playing well, it seems like things aren't going right. And once things start clicking for the St. Louis Blues, everyone will start scoring. Ryan O'Reilly hasn't scored very much. Robert Thomas has been invisible. Jordan Kyrou has been, he's been invisible. Even Tarasenko, after the year he had last year, hasn't been great. They're second last in the Central right now. The only team that's behind them is Arizona. Like, once they pick up, I still expect 30 goals from them. 28.
I would like that. I would like that. The thing that I looked at, I was saying, okay, I wonder why this is happening. And the first thing I looked at was his shooting percentage. And he's shooting 5%.
Oh, that's a good sign.
Which is low. But then I looked a little more, and I said, okay, well, like if you're shooting 5%, is that he has getting great quality opportunities and they just aren't going in? It's really the opposite. He's had 25 scoring chances so far this year, at least according to people who calculate that stuff, and 19 of them were considered low danger.
Oh, that is not a good sign.
So I think what that would mean is like outside the little home plate area, like between the hash marks, bottom of the circle area. So 19 of his 25 chances have come from the periphery, essentially, which is not something I would expect from Jordan Kyrou, and not a good sign either. So I wonder if that's like a line thing. You know, so you mentioned O'Reilly hasn't been playing well, and they're on the same line. I don't know what the issue is. I don't watch enough St. Louis hockey to be able to pick up on what the issue is myself, but there clearly seems to be an issue where he's not generating any high danger scoring chances. Maybe he's not getting the puck when he is there, or he's just not finding himself in those areas to score those high danger goals. But that has to change. And I think when that changes, shooting percentage will go up, because it's hard to shoot 14%, which is around league average, or which is what the better players shoot if you're shooting from the top of the circles or from the periphery. So I think there's an explanation for the low shooting percentage, that something needs to change in his game.
I agree. That shooting percentage does not control for the quality of shots, correct? Which is what you had just said.
Yeah.
I watched a lot of Blues hockey last year, and what I can tell you is this team is like the Toronto Maple Leafs on steroids. They are either the highest scoring team in the NHL, or like they're the bottom of the barrel team. Like last year, compared to this year, there have been no culture changes. I mean, Craig Berube is still there. No big changes to the team's roster construction, minus David Perron. There were 9 guys that scored 20 goals last year. This team is built on winning games 6-5, 7-5. I mean, now that David Perron's gone, there's 8 players left on the team that scored 20 last year.
Yeah.
When this team doesn't score, they're bad. And the argument I'm trying to make is when they're not bad anymore, which will be soon, everyone on this team will start scoring at a high rate. And I think Jordan Kyrou will be one of the first to do so, because they have invested so much money in him. There is no way they start playing him 12 minutes a night.
No, they're going to keep playing him.
Yes.
And he plays with O'Reilly.
And he is on the second line power play, which kind of sucks. But I think once he starts playing well again, he's going to be on the first line. And if you look at those 2 power plays, the first and the second line are both very good. And they split time.
They're deep, yeah. I think, I hope he'll figure it out for selfish reasons. But I think it'll be okay. Let's move on to a pair of players in Calgary. We mentioned it earlier. Both Lindholm and Huberdeau are having kind of tough starts to the year.
Yep.
I don't have much to say in terms of like stats, but I do think that they'll eventually have to figure it out. They're both too good, and they both complement each other way too well on paper to not figure it out. Huberdeau's one of the best passers in the league. Lindholm 40 goals last season, so he's clearly a very good goal scorer. I think it's only a matter of time before they can figure out how to connect it. It's tough, right? They're playing with a brand new line. So is Lindholm, right? With Toffoli, they never played with Toffoli last year. His 2 line mates left. It does take a little bit of time, so I wouldn't be pressing the panic button if I was in Calgary, especially because they're still really freaking good, even without their top line playing well, which is scary.
Yep. So out of all of these players, I agree. I'm not hitting the panic button on either of them. But the one player I am most worried about here regressing is Elias Lindholm.
Okay.
And I still think he is going to be good. Like, expect 25 to 30 goals from, which is it's a first line center on most teams. Rumor has it, from what I've seen, and like I'm not an insider, but you know, on Twitter and TikTok, that they're going to swap him and Kadri, considering their starts. And there's multiple reasons for this that I see validity from. First and foremost, Kadri, you know, to my surprise, shows no signs of regression. He's an offensive beast, and Lindholm is a defensive specialist. So I think to wake up Jonathan Huberdeau, because he's got like 1 goal in his first 9, I think Sutter said they might roll with Kadri on the first line.
Interesting.
Considering the offensive start and considering the money that they put into Nazem Kadri, especially if Lindholm doesn't sign back next year. And if that stays, you know, Lindholm plays now on a second line with Mangiapane and Coleman, who are both good players, but they're not Tkachuk and Gaudreau.
No.
Right? Last year was also the first year that Lindholm put up 40 goals.
That's true.
He also played with 2 of the better play drivers and puck distributors in the NHL on those 2 wings, who are, I think, 2 of the best 5-on-5 players in the NHL.
They're both really good.
Right? And granted, he's still going to be on the first line power play till he's no longer a Calgary Flame. But if he gets put on that second line, maybe I think 15 goals get taken off that total last year. Yeah,
that's a really good point, actually. They do have the luxury of being able to move a centerman up, which they never had before this. I think Kadri and Huberdeau would play very well together too. So that would actually be really interesting to see that play out. And unfortunately, like you said, maybe that causes a regression in Lindholm's stats. So maybe we don't see a bounce back like we're maybe expecting from the Matthews or from a couple of other guys that we mentioned so far. That's a really good point, actually.
As for Huberdeau, this one worries me too. But when I say worry and I think he's going to regression for Jonathan Huberdeau is 95 points.
Yeah,
so
he's going to be fine.
Still going to be great. Like we said, being put in a very defensive system like that of Sutter, it takes time to develop into. And even when you're fully developed to, if there's a bigger proportion of defensive responsibilities, maybe that costs him 5 or 10 points a year, which, overall probably makes him a better overall player.
Yeah.
But his point production falls. And he's playing with a very defensive-minded center in Lindholm. And, it's very true that he also played with Barkov for most of his career. But Barkov has shown that he is just as offensively good as he is defensively, whereas Lindholm has only been offensively elite when he played with 2 offensively elite players. So for all we know, Lindholm can pick it up, but if he doesn't, and that line stays the same, maybe Huberdeau has a bit of an issue, but there's just no way he puts up under 90 points this year.
Yeah, and like you said, new system, new city, new line mates, all of that goes into understandably having maybe a little slower start than we expected. Someone who the other team in Alberta was hoping to not have a slow start, and he's had quite literally a definition of a tough start, is Jack Campbell.
Oh.
It's early, but this really does seem to be the reason why the Leafs were very reluctant to commit to him. And they seem vindicated, not only because of Samsonov having a pretty great season so far, but Jack Campbell has been shaky. He's a really volatile goalie. Right now he's rocking an .888 save percentage, which is
so tough.
Just not good. In 6 games, he has a minus 2.1 goals saved above expected so far. So basically, he's let in 2 more goals than the expected goal stats say that he should.
A game?
No, I think that's just in 6 games.
Still bad.
Still not great. Yeah. Among the 28 goalies that have played, I think it's 5 games this season. He's 21st in goal save above expected.
Wow.
And I haven't been watching Edmonton much this season because they play late and, can't watch every hockey game. But he seems to be struggling with his rebound control and his ability to freeze the puck. So I was looking at some of the stats thinking, hey, why? What's going on here? He ranks very low in the bottom half, the bottom maybe quarter in among goalies, the number of rebounds that they give up per game and number of times they're able to freeze the puck. And so if you're giving up second and third chances with that decor in front of you, who, let's be real, aren't great. You have Tyson Barrie, Darnell Nurse, Evan Bouchard, who I have an issue with.
It'll be fine. You're 0-2 in your fantasy, but you'll come back.
Not the most defensively astute decor. So if you're giving up second and third chances, you're gonna get burned. Mm-hmm. So I think the blame likely lies with both the decor and the goalie. But when the goalie is not controlling his rebounds, when he's not smothering the puck when he has opportunities, that's gonna hurt you. I think it's a combination of all those things that are contributing to a slow start. But because I'm a fan of Jack Campbell, the person, I hope he figures it out.
Yeah, I agree. You put it well. In his first 6 games, he's let in 3, 4, 4, 1, 3, 5 goals in his first 6, and he got pulled once. He didn't even get the win in the game that he let in 1 goal because I think they got shut out by the Blues. That's when Binner got his first shutout.
Really?
I feel so bad for Oilers fans. I genuinely feel bad. There is once again, in a matter of months, a goalie controversy on that team. For the longest time, they sign Koskinen into that huge deal. He's the guy. Then Mike Smith comes in. They're both terrible. One's not winning the job from the other. One's losing it to the other. The team is good enough to make a cup run if they had a relatively okay goalie. Credit to Holland. That's still Holland, right? Credit to Holland. Finally goes out and shores up a hole that should have been filled years ago. Finally does it. You go 5x5. Jack Campbell is the guy. Let's make a cup run. And in a matter of months, he's being pulled. Stuart Skinner is starting games. And you talked about it. Jack Campbell has an .888 save percentage. That's 15th worst in the NHL. You know what Stuart Skinner's save percentage is this year?
It's actually pretty good, isn't it?
He's second in the league at .957 in 3 games. .957. The only guy above him is Jake the Otter. The Otter at .960.
Yeah, the Otter's having a crazy season on a side note.
But Stuart Skinner's at a .957.
He's been really good. I think it's his net now. You got to give it to him until he loses it, I guess.
So that's the question I want to ask you. Considering all of the history where they've had, you think of the Oilers, you laugh at them because their goalies are just so bad. Goalie controversy, whatever. They finally go out and get a good goalie. They're here. The goalie struggles first. Do you start Stuart Skinner now? Because if you do that, you're accepting to the fact that this offseason was a failure and there's another goalie controversy. Or do you let Jack Campbell, ride until he's at 880 for a month?
I think the Oilers are good enough and the Pacific is weak enough where they have the luxury of letting Jack Campbell figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
I think they do. So I think because it's early in the season, maybe you will let him play. You give him a few games now. Try and empower him as much as you can. Fill him with confidence. Play tight in front of him to try and get those numbers up and to get his confidence up, because he really does seem to be a goalie who thrives when he's confident and really, really sucks when he's not confident in himself. That's unfortunate. So maybe you say, hey, Skinner, listen, we paid this guy $5 million. We know you're better than him right now, but we got to let him play. You have a conversation. I think you got to let him try and find it. But I don't know how long you can wait for him, because they do want to make a cup run and they got to find out who their goalie is.
He needs to find it just for the optics of the Edmonton Oilers. Like my biggest worry is that Jack Campbell, like you said, has a mediocre month where, let's say, he has a save percentage of, 895 to 905, which isn't great, but it's not bottom of the barrel, but it's pretty bad. He does that for the next month. And then you start saying, Stuart Skinner has a 960 save percentage. You give him the net for 4 or 5 games, you're back to square one with Koskinen and Mike Smith circa 2.0.
The thing is, though, in this case, if one of them is playing well, that's fine, because it's a sunk cost, right? The $5 million right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think like if you're the coach, especially if you're the coach, just give me a goalie who can stop pucks. I don't care what his name is. I don't care how much money he makes. Although it's not ideal to have the guy you paid in the offseason to be your number one, not be your number one. That's not ideal. As long as someone in the net is stopping pucks, I think that's okay for Edmonton, because of their goalie situation has been so dire in the past.
Financially and rationally speaking, 100% you're correct. But Edmonton fans aren't the most rational fans in the world.
No, but if they're winning, it's okay.
Yeah, but the problem is what if they're not winning?
Well, then that becomes the issue, because if they're not winning, it means whoever's in net's probably not playing great.
Yeah, and also I don't think Edmonton Oilers players are happy to go, oh my God, here we are again. We have to win game 6-5. I thought we were finally going to be able to win them 6-3. Connor McDavid is going, I'm scoring hat tricks, and once again I'm scared that a muffin shot is going to go in on a Koskinen 2.0 with Jack Campbell in net, and they got him for 5 years at $5 million.
The 5 years is tough. Like I said, I think that's why the Leafs probably saw a little bit of the writing on the wall, especially with his performance last season. I hope he figures it out.
Me too.
I don't think he's an 888 goalie. That's just not where he is. We know he's capable of being up there in the 900s somewhere. If it turns out to be a situation where Stuart Skinner takes the mantle from him a little bit earlier, you ride with it because you have a good goalie. I think they have bigger ambitions to the point where I don't really think they care who's in net. That's my perspective. I'm also not in Oilers space in that fan base, so I would be interesting to see what one of them thinks. Maybe that's something we can work out for a future episode, is kind of have somebody on and walk us through what it's like to have a situation like this. But from the outside looking in, as long as someone's stopping pucks for you, I'm happy. Yeah,
the issue with Jack Campbell is, from a bird's eye view, in 1 year, he probably had like a 915 last year, which is a good goalie.
Yeah, 914, 915 last year, but he was. We know if you just take a little bit of a deeper look and look month by month, it's like literally behemoth.
It was 880 to 940 to 880 to 940, right? And we're seeing the 880 here. And the problem is that the Edmonton Oilers defensive core is worse than what the Leafs defensive core last year was. Yeah. So when he's 880 on that team, it's exacerbated.
For sure. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content, and find the link to our full podcast and all our socials in the description down below.
Also, don't forget to turn on those notifications to get live updates on new videos that we release.